Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Let's continue with our discussion on dawah in our dawah workshop. Infinity does not exist in reality. Yes, mathematically, there are infinities mathematically. But infinity has no existence in reality. Right? And to give an example of this, a very simple example. Imagine example of a sniper. You know, the sniper is in, for example, he's in the army. So these snipers, they have a radio, right? And before they're allowed to shoot the target, they have to contact, target. They say target in sight, target acquired, permission to fire. So they can't fire without permission, right? So imagine someone, the person there on the radio, says, wait a minute, I can't give permission for that. I need someone higher up to give permission. So he radios higher up. And higher up says, no, I'm going to have to radio higher up. And higher up says, I'm going to radio higher up. And if that keeps going on and on and on and on and on forever, will the sniper ever pull the trigger? Or is he just going to be waiting there forever and ever and ever? He's going to be waiting there forever and ever, right? The command will never come. In other words, there has to be a place where this stops. There has to be someone from whom this command is ultimately going to be given. Someone with the ultimate authority. It can't go on forever and ever because then nothing would ever happen. You would just have an endless chain of commands. So think about it. Use the same analogy and think about, therefore, the universe. If the universe needed a creator who needed a creator who needed a creator who needed a creator forever and ever, what you will have is creators creating creators for infinity. And just as the sniper would never pull the trigger, you would never get a universe being created because the command keeps getting passed on. The same thing, the responsibility or the one who's going to create the universe would never get round to creating it because it's always a creator who's going to create a creator who's going to create a creator. So it's just very similar. Just as a sniper would pull the trigger, you would never get a creation. But the creation is here. It exists. That means ultimately some being must have issued the command. It must stop somewhere. And if we want to try and then figure out what is the nature of this being, we are still left with the same conclusions that we've already come up with. That being the nature of this being must be different from the creation. Must be. This is a very powerful and very logical way of understanding or explaining why the Creator does not need a creator. Okay? Why the Creator is one. So to summarize this in a very, very simple way, we've shown that there must be a God. We've shown that the Creator must be powerful and the Creator must be intelligent. And then we can simply conclude, we can ask the person, is the Creator going to be different from or the same as the creation? If the person says the same as the creation, then we will go back and we will say to them, but if the Creator is the same as the creation, does that make any sense? That Creator then would need a creator. It's like saying your mother gave birth to your mother. She gave birth to herself. She created herself. It doesn't make any sense. Is this reasonable or rational? No. So if the nature of the Creator must be different from the creation, if the creation is temporary and finite and needy, the Creator must be infinite, eternal, and self-sufficient. And there could only be one such being. Now, can anyone think of some other arguments or some other rational ways to show that there must be one Creator? Is anyone familiar with any other type of arguments that I haven't mentioned? There are some in the Quran, for example. Yes. Ahmed, yes. How would you explain that God is one?
Actually, I would like to add that you mentioned about the cycle of creator created the creator. So I would like to add a point on that.
Go on then. Yeah, go ahead.
If we see, if a creator creates another creator, then the first one no longer remains a creator because it becomes a creation.
Well, that's true. But this is more to do with pedantics or the meaning of words. What we're trying to think of is what is logically and rationally necessary, as opposed to, yes, we know the word creator means, but that's not necessarily true. Okay? I am a creator if I make something, right? I am a creator of that thing. Not in the ultimate sense. I'm not the creator, but I have still created something. Yeah? So I could create something and still be created myself. Still possible. Right? I'm just not a creator in the ultimate sense. The creator in the ultimate sense is the one who literally creates something out of nothing. That's the unique thing about Allah. Yeah, Allah just needs to say be and it is. He just says be and it exists. So Allah is not nothing. If sometimes an atheist may say, well, you say that God can create something from nothing. But I would say, well, God is not nothing. God is the creator. It's from His power. Yeah? So that's not necessarily true. Okay. If you wanted to try and persuade someone that God is one, would you give these arguments that I've just told you, or would you have said something else? What would you say? How do you try and persuade people that God is one?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. If you look at the hierarchy in any organization, there's always one captain of the ship. There's always one president of the nation. There's always one father. So there's always one. So you have to have one person. If there are two, you'll have fights.
Okay, very good. Excellent. So what Arshi has mentioned is that there is always one captain of the boat. There is one head of the family. There is one leader of the country. If that is not the case, you ultimately have great potential for chaos. In fact, ultimately, sooner or later, you're going to have some major conflict. Even if there are 2 or 3 people or a council of people, still ultimately the decision is going to have to rest with one person. One person still has to have the deciding voice. Right? So this is something that we know and experience in our life. It is also therefore quite reasonable to presume that there should only be one creator. This is more evident because of the amazing level of complexity of the universe. In fact, there's one very famous or infamous or notorious atheist. His name was Antony Flew. Antony Flew was one of the most notorious atheists in the last century. And very soon before he died, he wrote a book. And the book was titled, There Is No God. And then he crossed out the no, and meaning there is a God, because he changed his mind. Just before he died, he wrote a book, he changed his mind. And he said that what changed his mind was new information that had come about the complexity of the universe. And he concluded that this level of complexity was not possible except that there must have been a creator. Furthermore, the level of complexity made it clear to him that there could only be one omnipotent, omniscient creator. So this creator must be all-powerful and all-knowing, because he could not perceive how this level of complexity could have come into being through a multiple of intelligences. Rather, it indicated a single source. A single, highly capable, highly intelligent source. So this was his personal conclusion. So again, if there were many gods, or if there were many creators, there is another argument the Quran says. That's one argument, right? Is that every single organization we find in our life, from the family to the country to a captain of a ship, it needs one ultimate authority and one ultimate command. So there should also be one ultimate authority and one ultimate command, one creator. So that's one common sense argument. What's another one? I've hinted at it already, yes. I haven't said it quite, but I've got very close. So you just need to finish it off.
At the same time, a two driver cannot drive a single vehicle.
We said that already. The brother Arashi already said that. You don't need to repeat the same thing. Okay, yeah, you can't have two captains of a boat. You can't have two people driving a car or driving a motorboat. And okay, that we've had that example. Well done. So we need another one. We're going to take a short break, brothers and sisters. Don't go away. We'll be back soon, inshallah. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Let's continue with our discussion on dawah in our dawah workshop. You can't have two captains of a boat. You can't have two people driving a car or driving a motorboat. And okay, that we've had that example. Well done. So we need another one. Yes. It's connected to what I have already said.
Okay, let's take an example of Earth. If there were two creators, the Earth wouldn't be stable.
Okay, thank you. Why not?
Because if there were two creators, there would be many conflicts between them. That I want this here, I want that here.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you very much. If there were two creators, you would have instability because one creator would be wanting to do this and the other creator would want to be doing that. Right? And the point being, you would not find the creation in this harmonious way that we find it. In fact, when we are looking at the universe, we find that, for example, the laws that existed at the beginning of the universe are of such a precise nature that if they were different by even a very, very, very small percentage, if the force of gravity was different by 0.0000, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 zeros, 0.23 or something, a titchy amount, can you imagine the force of gravity different by that? The universe would have expanded so fast, no stars and galaxies would have formed. Or it never would have expanded in the first place if it was less, by just a titchy amount. A minute amount. The same with the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, many different things. These are necessary in order for the universe to be the way it is. So if these were different by even a small amount, electromagnetic force, gravity, the weak nuclear force, these things, if they were different by a small percentage, the universe would not be existing the way it is and there would be no life. The point being here is this type of precision indicates that there could only be one united decision in that process. If it was more, then you'd have this one doing this and this one making it like this and this one making it like that. So this is another point. Okay? Does the universe, the way we look at it, really lead us to that conclusion? No, it leaves us in the opposite conclusion, that there should only be one creator. So these are simple arguments. So when it comes down to dawah, if you can use a simple argument, why not use a simple argument? If you need to use a more sophisticated argument, then use the more sophisticated argument. Use whatever works. For me, I just usually go down the line of saying, do you think that the creator of the universe is going to be the same as the universe or different? Most people are going to say different. So if the universe is finite and needy and temporary, the creator should be infinite and eternal and self-sufficient. And does it make sense to say there's more than one eternal, self-sufficient, infinite being? Surely there's just one. Most of the time, I find that's more than effective. And if I then add the explanation of the creator creating the creator, why that doesn't make sense, this is also very effective in explaining why it's illogical or irrational to say or ask this question, who created the creator? So it explains it very nicely. Now, the powerful thing about that, brothers and sisters listening, is that a lot of people have these questions in their mind already. If you answer the question before they ask you, that's very powerful psychologically. And you can wait for them to say, wait a minute, then who created the creator? And then you can give them the answer. But if you give them the answer before they even ask it, and you explain how that solves that problem, that makes your dawah all the more powerful. Yeah? Yes. And by the way, now, and what do we say? Do you understand my reasoning so far? Yes. Okay.
Some people might argue that when you say things, you may create more questions for the person who may not have questions. For example, you may say, you know why we marry 4 wives? You know why you should believe that there is no creator other than the creator? Or who created the creator? So some people might argue that you're creating more questions for the person unnecessarily.
I don't think that's true at all. And it depends upon the question. It depends upon the question. These issues we're talking about are so fundamental. They're very fundamental questions. Why do you have 4 wives? Do you want to know why we have 4 wives? Well, why bring it up when you don't need to? Right? But with these issues, these are so fundamental that I am sure anybody thinking about this topic at some stage or another is going to ask these questions. And for sure we know from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know from the Prophet, as he said already, we mentioned this last time, is that shaitan comes when you say to a person and you're trying to explain to them that there must be a creator, due to everything has a cause, shaitan will say, well, who caused the creator then? So we know for sure that shaitan is going to come and he's going to make people ask this question. So then why not preempt it? Why not answer shaitan's question before he comes and puts it in the head, which he's going to do anyway? So in this case, I don't agree. Yes, generally I agree with you. You don't need to create questions in a person's mind unnecessarily. And even to tell you the truth, do we need to rationally prove that God exists? Does every Muslim, for example, need to know the rational proofs of God's existence? No, because we also believe that this knowledge is part of our fitrah, it's part of our nature. Now perhaps if you go into the villages in central India or something like that, you don't need to go through the rational proofs of God's existence. Maybe people are very close to their fitrah. Maybe they already just believe in God and they believe God is one. They already believe that. Maybe it's another approach you need to use with them. But generally, by and large, in most cities in the world, nearly everyone is going through some form of an education system that is similar to the Western education system. It teaches critical thinking. It has a logical and rational approach to everything. Most people study science, even, by the way, these days, even in the villages. So in reality, due to the sort of universal nature of the education system today, this approach is very, very suitable for most people you're going to give dawah to. And I agree there may be some people it's unnecessary, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm not saying this is the only way to give dawah. But, you know, we have found this has worked in West, and we found it's worked in Africa as well, by the way. You know, so far so good. But I am not saying that you need to use this approach. There may be circumstances and places where it is not necessary, and you don't need to raise these things. A person may be confused anyway. Why are you even discussing whether there's a God or not? It's so obvious there's a God. Right? But I believe these days, in most cases, these questions are so predominant, they're so widespread, and they're made so public that you find even, subhanAllah, people you would never imagine are becoming atheists. They are having questions about God's existence. They're simply answered by these simple things. They're very simple to answer, but no one is doing it. So you find that I do think that especially in the cities, especially amongst educated people, this is a very good approach. So I don't think that the issue there of bringing these questions up is an issue because they're already going to have these questions. I feel very confident about that. Okay, so what I need you to do is now practice this. Now, I know I've given you a lot of information, so all you need to do is reduce it to one example. Whatever example you feel comfortable with. Although I would like you to learn to articulate these arguments, right? But the core argument, just to go over it again, which I think is the important one, is that remember in the last section of our conversation, we talked about how do we know that there is a creator. And inshallah, we've got agreement with them on that. Now we want to convince them that the creator is one, and the creator is different from, this is very important, and the creator is different from the creation. This is part of the very core of our religion, Islam. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing that is likened unto Allah. Allah is not like anything in the creation, and nothing in the creation is like Allah. This is the key of Tawheed. And most of you, by the way, all of you said you wanted to make Tawheed one of the 5 things that you said you would talk to a non-Muslim about. So now we are actually describing the very important dimension of Tawheed. Right? And why that is so important, we'll discuss straight away after this, inshallah. So, we've agreed that there's a creator, so we can say, so do you think that the creator must be the same as or different from the creation? So why is the creator different? Because if the creator was the same as the creation, then you would have more of the same. And that doesn't explain how the creation came to be here. And if that creator had a creator, and that creator had a creator, and you had creators creating creators going on forever, that means nothing would ever get created. Then you can give an example, right? Of the sniper. Can you remember the example of the sniper? So therefore we can conclude that the creator must be different from the creation. There must be someone or something from where this command issued. That is why we can conclude that there is only one infinite, self-sufficient, eternal creator. Okay, brothers and sisters, that's it for now. Join us for the next episode of Dawah Workshop.
رب رحيم مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم مشفق متعطف